Imagine the repeatedly battered wife who has tried but been unable to find her way out of her brutal marriage. And now, with her most recent wounds healed, it's time for her to celebrate her husband's birthday with her children who have witnessed her husband's brutality against her and who have all agreed, for this day at least, to smile and sing along in celebration of the anniversary of his birth. And so it is, and has always been. On the big birthdays for the United States of America, as we learn in Eddie Glaud's important new book, America, USA, How Race Shadows the Nation's Anniversaries. In his book, Professor Glaud writes, American anniversaries are often moments to turn a blind eye to the evils of the past and the present, to suppress the fact of America's divided soul. And that is what Donald Trump is determined to do for this nation's upcoming 250th birthday. Donald Trump is desecrating the White House grounds to build a temple of violence where there was once a rose garden, and where there will next be an ugly and utterly pointless exhibition of men trying to savagely beat each other as part of the Trump White House celebration of America's 250th birthday. Trump and the men who will join him to worship the gladiator skills on display where there was once a rose garden don't know the history of this country and don't want to, and seem to believe that savage combat is really what this country is about, even though men like Donald Trump have never engaged in physical combat themselves. Professor Glaud points out that Frederick Douglass was right a year before the country's 100th birthday when he predicted, quote, one grand centennial hosanna of peace and goodwill to all the white race of this country. That 100th birthday in 1876 found Frederick Douglass, who had been a friend of President Lincoln, among the dignitaries on the main platform as President Grant spoke. He almost didn't make it. Professor Glaud tells the story this way in the audiobook of America USA, How Race Shadows the Nation's Anniversaries.
As the crowd had gathered outside the gates before the exhibition opened, important guests passed through to the cheers and chants of those who recognized them. But the gray-haired Douglass found himself on the outside, crushed among the throngs of people waiting to enter. The Philadelphia police refused to admit him. They did not believe that a nigger would be allowed among this august body for this special occasion. Douglass argued in vain, showing his ticket of admission to the platform dais. The police still refused. A New York Herald correspondent reported it was feared he might have gone out with the crushed and fainting if Senator Conkling had not seen him and vouching for his right to be present enabled him to pass the line. But Douglass's presence on the platform at the opening of the exposition was mere window dressing. The greatest orator in the nation was to be seen and not heard on this day. He sat silently as the nation celebrated its beginnings and its coming of age.
Joining us now is Eddie S. Glaud Jr., Distinguished University Professor of African American Studies at Princeton University and an MS Now political analyst. His new book, America, USA, How Race Shadows the Nation's Anniversaries, is available right now today. Professor Glaud, so great to have you here. And I want to say thank you because I learned so much, both reading and listening to this book. I'm a double dipper. I listened to it in the car. I've been reading it at home. And here we go again, it seems, for the 250th.
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much, Lawrence. I think it's important for us to understand that this divided soul, this idea of America as a beacon of freedom and a white republic, can't be held at once without contradiction. And I think because of this division, this doubleness, right, it deposits a kind of madness at the heart of the country. which leads us, it puts us in these cycles. And so here we are in the 250th with J.D. Vance invoking blood and soil, and Donald Trump having the manliness of the gladiators of the UFC. They're going to tell a story of the country that in so many ways denies its tragic beginnings, denies its contradictions, in order to secure their fantasies in illusion and myth.
You make the point as you look back at every one of the big ones that if you go back 50 years to the 200th in 1976, Vietnam was so recent, and the tragedies of the assassinations of Martin Luther King Jr., Robert Kennedy, those things were so recent that they couldn't even pretend to do something serious, and it just became kind of a trinket selling event.
Yeah, big business stood in. You know, this was the bicentennial was very different because of television, kind of mass consumer culture. You could buy all sorts of, bicentennial trinkets, from whoopee cushions to red, white, and blue hamburgers, right? I even remember a photograph of myself in tricolor pants as I was an 8-year-old taking my school pictures, right? But in an interesting sort of way, the kind of conflict, the fissures, the fragmentation made the desire for consensus so much more intense, as you remember, Lawrence, right? There is this sense that we had to be unified in light of Watergate, in light of Vietnam, in light of the Black Power movement. And what you have instead are these moments of intense contradiction being made manifest. And what I write about in the book, of course, are the anti-busing protest in Boston, and that iconic image of the teenager attacking a black lawyer with the American flag.
Yes, that was happening in the shadow of that birthday. It was 1975, and there you go. The next year, 1976. It was really an incredible time in the country. I just cannot thank you enough for this book. I have to say, I learned so much. Perfectly timed, obviously, for the 250th anniversary coming up. Professor Eddie Glaude, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me.